Hi everyone, I'm back with another word problem. This is for Math OED2 and we're in section 2.4, which is the systems of linear equations word problems. So this problem is one of the ones about investment, where we have two different accounts which have two different interest rates, and we have to figure out usually either what the interest rate on each account was, or we have to figure out how much was invested in each account. So let's read through this problem. It says a woman invests $4,000 into two accounts. One has 6% interest. The other one has 9% interest. Then it says at the end of the year, she earned $270 in interest. Okay? And remember, the last sentence is the most important because it helps us to know what our two variables should be. So it asks us to find how much money we invested in each account. So the first variable is going to be the amount of money invested in account number 1. Okay, and the second variable, same thing, account number 2, right? The amount of money invested in account number 2. So again, you can use any letter that makes you happy. I'm just going to be super boring today and use X and Y. Okay, so anytime that I have a word problem where there just feels like there's a lot of information, I like to organize it into a table. Okay, so the first thing that this problem is talking about is how much money this woman invested, right? So I'm going to make that my first column, but first I want to write my rows, right? We have two different accounts, account 1 and account 2. Okay, and so then we have the amount invested. Okay, so that's the amount of money that you deposit into the bank, right? And then at the end of the year, you take it out, and hopefully there's more money in there than you started with, and that extra money is called interest. Okay, so we're not told, right? We don't know how much she invested in account 1. We also don't know how much she invested in account 2, but we are told that she invested $4,000, right? And the implication is that that's a total amount that she invested between the two accounts. So we're going to put that down here, and we can title this third row total. Okay? Now, it's not quite true that I don't have anything to put into these boxes because, right, we don't have any numbers to put in there, but we do have some variables, right? We just decided that our first variable, X, is the amount of money that was invested into the first account, and we decided that our second variable is the amount of money that was invested into the second account. Okay. Now we have some other information, right? If I keep reading, we are given the interest rates. So I'm going to write that right here, interest rates. Okay? We are told that the first account, I guess, whatever, the one account has 6% interest. Remember, 6% means out of 100. So 6 over 100 is 0.06. Always watch that, right? If you just put 6 there, that would be like 600%, which would be super awesome because then you'd get 6 times your money back just in interest. But unfortunately, that doesn't actually happen in real life. So make sure you're converting your percents to decimals. Okay, so to add our rates up is not meaningful, so we don't want to put anything in that box. All right, so we have the amount of money that we're investing, right? We have the interest rate on both accounts, right? And then we have the amount of money in interest. And again, interest, you can think of it as almost like free money, if you will. It's the extra amount of money that's in your account at the end of the year that wasn't there at the beginning of the year. Okay, so I'm going to write amount of interest Okay, and you might notice, right, they don't tell us, right, how much money was in account 1 or account 2. All they tell us is the 270, and the implication here is that that is the total amount of interest gained from both accounts. Okay, so we have to do a little bit of work here, a little bit of math, and that is that if I take the amount of money invested, right here it's X, and I multiply that by the interest rate over here, right, 0.06 times X is going to tell me, it's going to help me figure out the amount of interest that was in the account. If you don't believe me, okay, just think of a really simple example. So let's say I invested $100 and somehow I got really lucky and I had 10% interest rate. That's ridiculously high, but let's just imagine that that was the case, right? Then at the end of the year, right, I'd still have my $100, but I'd have 10% more. So then I need to figure out, well, what is 10% of 100, right? And 10% of 100 times 0.10 is $10, okay? So the amount of interest I would have earned in 1 year, having invested $100 at 10% interest rate, right, the amount of interest, the amount of extra money that's going to be in my account is $10, okay? So I'm going to do the same thing here. My interest rate is 0.06, right? We don't know how much we invested. We're just going to call it X, okay? So the total amount of interest is going to be 0.06X. Okay, same thing here, right? We have Y. We have 9% of whatever was in the account. Okay, so the beauty here of having this table is that the equations literally just fall out of the columns. Okay, so if I look at the equation here, the first column, we have X, Y, and 4,000. And that gives us, believe it or not, that gives us our first equation. So let's see if we can use different color here. Okay, so the first equation is going to be X plus Y is equal to 4,000. That's our first equation. Okay, now because we have two variables, right, we have to have two equations to have, in order to be able to solve for both variables. Otherwise, you just have a line that you can graph. The second equation comes from this column right here, and that tells us that 0.06x plus 0.09y equals 270. And that's it. Those are your table and your two equations. Now, in my open math and other problems, they would want you to then go on and solve for x and y. I'm not going to do that in this video because the purpose of this video is to help you set up the equations. I'll make other videos that go over how to use substitution and elimination in order to solve systems of equations.